Hey girl, welcome to Rooted Radiance, the women's health podcast dedicated to helping you improve your health, grow, and radiate with confidence. So many women start a weight loss journey feeling super motivated, committed, and ready to make changes. And then they hit a wall and it feels like nothing works anymore. You're eating healthy, maybe you're exercising consistently, you're doing all the right things, but the scale isn't budging, it's not moving for you. Maybe your clothes feel the same and you just start wondering if you are doing something wrong. Most women aren't seeing results because of food tracking mistakes that just add up. And I say it with compassion because I've been there. I didn't just study nutrition for 6 years, I've lived this. I know what it feels like to be uncomfortable in your body, trying different diets, feeling tired, discouraged, and trying to understand why nothing is changing. So, in today's episode, I'm breaking down the most common food logging mistakes that stall weight loss and what to do instead so you can finally see progress. These are the exact things I teach my clients, the things that actually create clarity, confidence, and real results. So, let's get into it. When you hear about weight loss, you've probably have heard of a calorie deficit. A calorie deficit is essentially eating less than your body burns in a day to facilitate weight loss. And when you're getting started with weight loss, it can be extremely helpful to log your food so you understand how much you're consuming. Tracking calories can be tricky, and you may be doing it incorrectly without you even knowing. So, I've mentioned my own weight loss before on Instagram. And if you're new, I was you once. Once again, I didn't just study this for 6 years, I've lived it. I was you if you feel uncomfortable in your skin, if you've tried to go on a diet, if you've exercised relentlessly, or you just feel sluggish and tired. That was me over 10 years ago. Body composition change is one of the topics that is just near and dear to my heart because of my own struggle and experience with it and how I want to make it easier for you. So, back in late middle school, early high school, I distinctly remember looking at myself in my bedroom and I was crying. I had one of those closets that were the mirror sliding door closets. And I remember standing there and feeling so dissatisfied with my body, with how tired and sluggish I felt, and how I couldn't do the things that other peers of mine at the time could do. I will never forget that moment. That's when I decided, okay, I need to be healthier. It was an active thought of I need to make better choices. That's where it started for me, and I can dive deeper into my whole story on another episode. But one of the ways you can become more aware of your eating is by tracking food. I will go ahead and give you access to my food logging and mood journal that I give my clients access to if you want to start logging your food. And stay till the end of this episode because I have something even more special to go along with giving you free access to a food and mood journal. But now let's dive into the ways that you're incorrectly tracking your food and what to do instead. Okay, the first is using fellow users' items. So there are food logging apps out there that allow users to publicly add their meals and other items in there. And if you're food logging and choosing a user generated item, so someone else that is using the app that they created some sort of meal or recipe and you use that as yours, it's inaccurate. Let's say you had a breakfast burrito and you type that into whatever food login app you're using and you select someone else's breakfast burrito. You have no idea what they put into their burrito, what tortilla you used, if they had cheese, if they added potatoes, how many eggs they used. Do you get my point? It's extremely inaccurate. And if you're using these items and not losing weight, this is the first thing that you actually need to adjust in your food tracking. So instead of using user items that are added into there, you can make your own recipe or meal if it's an item that you frequently have, if it's like your go-to breakfast item, or you can simply track ingredient by ingredient. And that is the most accurate way to track. Okay, the second biggest mistake I see is waiting to log. So if you choose to delay your logging until the end of the day, you are leaving some room for error. And it's not your fault. We're just human beings that forget details because our day is incredibly busy. So you may have incorrectly added the correct portion that you had originally, and you kind of forgot really what that actually looked like. Or you may simply just forget something else that you ate during the day. So instead, I'd recommend logging when you eat or pre-logging if you know what you're going to have from the day. So, getting into the habit of actually, when you're sitting down and eating, quickly logging that while you're eating because you can see what is there, your portions, and you can log it that way. Or if you already know what you're logging because let's say you already had an idea of what you're going to have for breakfast and you are eating leftovers for lunch that you're bringing to work, and then you know what you're making for dinner tonight, you can preemptively log that so you kind of know where you're at for your day. And then if you end up having more, say at dinner, adjusting accordingly. But that's the way to combat that room for error if you are typically waiting to log your food. Now, the third mistake I see is actually using exercise calories. So if you're using a food logging app that pulls data from, say, like a fitness tracker that you're using, it's going to estimate the amount of calories that you burned and add them to your daily calories. And the calculations that they use are not necessarily accurate. So you could be eating more calories, and that's putting you out of a calorie deficit. So you're either at maintenance and not losing weight, or you're in a calorie surplus and maybe you're, starting to gain weight. The fourth mistake I often see is not counting oils. So if you want to be accurate with food logging, you need to ensure that you log the fats and the oils that you use in cooking. Okay, so for example, a tablespoon of olive oil is 120 calories. If you don't add that, you're leaving uncounted calories, and you could be going over your calories, making it hard to lose weight, even though you feel like you're doing the right thing and you are food logging and you feel like you're in a calorie deficit, but you're not truly in a calorie deficit. This could be the reason why. And the same rules apply not just for oils and fats, but I commonly see people not log different sauces, condiments, dressing, or like the little bites of food that someone might eat off of their child's plate. It all adds up and it puts you over in your calorie amount. Just to clarify, yes, that means adding your ketchup, your mustard, your mayo, whatever it is. You should be adding that in because it's calories. It doesn't seem like a lot, but again, if you do that a few times a day, that could easily just put you at maintenance calories. And of course, you're not losing weight because you're not really truly in a calorie deficit. Next one, I'm going to step on some toes, but using AI. Whoo! Yep, I said it. Okay. Okay, using apps that utilize AI for photo taking purposes or just implementing and using AI in ChatGPT or something, is not super accurate. It actually often gets the nutrition information wrong. It does not get everything wrong, but it does get a decent amount wrong. So there is room for error in this as well. So using AI, whether it's the photos that you're taking a photo of and it tries to calculate the nutrition information, or if you're just typing something into ChatGPT or another AI platform, you could be going over your calories because it's not extremely as precise as you might think it is. AI does make mistakes. Okay. So instead of using that, go by what I said earlier by adding each ingredient in or making it easier on yourself if you're having meals that you have on repeat so you don't have to do ingredient by ingredient. AI could be costing you and delaying your weight loss. The sixth biggest mistake I see is weekday logging only. This is when you're logging consistently throughout the work week, and then when it comes to the weekend, you just fall off. This is the prime example of how you could be doing the right thing during those work days, those 5 days, but when it comes to the weekend and you're not food logging, you don't know how much you consumed on the weekend, and that could be throwing you off of your calorie deficit, causing you to either maintain weight or gain weight. So those 5 days, yeah, you could be in your calorie deficit. But if you are not, and maybe you overconsume on the weekend because you don't know how much you're eating, that could easily cause you to maintain and not lose weight or gain weight. So start logging every single day. Don't just log a part of the week and fall off. Set a reminder if you have to, do whatever you need to do. But logging consistently is going to help you to understand how much you're actually consuming and help you to be accountable to actually stay in that calorie deficit. Okay, mistake number 7 I see is incorrectly tracking meat and seafood. You may not know this, but it's more accurate to track your meat or your seafood when it's raw versus when it's cooked. So if you think about, raw meat, let's just say some ground meat, okay, when you cook that ground meat, it shrinks. So 4 ounces of raw cooked meat is different than 4 ounces of cooked meat. See the difference there? So if you actually were to weigh 4 ounces of raw meat and then cook it, and then if you were to weigh 4 ounces of cooked ground meat and you compared those together, they're going to look different. So that could be one thing that you're doing that is skewing how much you're consuming. What I would recommend is try measuring your protein before you cook it if you can. For some recipes, you won't be able to do that. So if you cannot do that in a specific recipe, then try to divide the meat by the servings of the dish, right? And this is where adding in recipes into your food logging platform can be extremely helpful. So, for example, let's say you're making a soup and you are adding a pound of meat into that. And let's say that soup serves 6. So you know that you're having 2.67 ounces and 2/3 of an ounce of that ground meat. And that's because there's 16 ounces in a pound. So you would do 16 ounces divided by 6 servings equals, right, 2.67 ounces of ground meat. So that's how you can decipher how much you're having in a meal if you're unable to weigh the uncooked meat before. Now, the next biggest mistake I see is when you're just eyeballing it. I promise you, if you're relatively new to tracking, you're probably underestimating what you're actually putting on your plate. So instead of just kind of eyeballing it and thinking that that's about a half a cup of rice, try measuring it with either a cup measurement or you can use a food scale and weigh it, but that will actually really help you to be precise. This is also a great way to grow your awareness of servings and portions and what you usually give yourself on a plate. This is not something that you need to do forever. You don't need to food track forever. But if you're just starting out with weight loss, food tracking can be an extremely helpful tool to use. Okay, the 9th biggest mistake I see is simply thinking calories only matters. So, an issue with food tracking is the mindset that calories are the only thing that matters. Calories are important, and you need to be in a calorie deficit to lose weight, but only focusing on calories allows room for lower quality food to compose the majority of your diet. And that's not what we want. This is kind of where my mindset on, if you've ever heard of if it fits your macros, that terminology, or the people that aspire to that, I feel like that leaves a lot of room for a diet that's majorly composed of lower quality foods. So instead of having the mindset of that, okay, instead we want to think of quality. What are the calories providing you beyond the energy? A calorie and a calorie are the same, but that's just for energy's sake. The quality of the calories is very different. right? So we want higher quality food and calories to support our body and to nourish our body. We don't want low quality food or low quality calories, if you will, make up the majority of your food intake. So, to give you just an obvious picture of this, okay, 200 calories from Lay's potato chips is very different than 200 calories from some Greek yogurt and berries, right? Same amount of calories, energy intake, but very different in what that actually provides your body and how it's supporting your body. Another way to think about this is thinking of nutrient density. I don't like to use words good or bad. I don't like to label foods. However, we want, again, quality and we want nutrient dense foods. When I say quality, I'm really thinking of nutrient density, right? We want the food to give us nutrients that our body needs and antioxidants and phytonutrients, right? We want all of those good compounds in the food itself to make up the majority of our diet. I do think that all foods can fit, right? So long as you don't have a food allergy to something, but outside of food allergies, right, and specific intolerances, which is a topic for another day, nutrient density needs to be prioritized, regardless of if you're in a calorie deficit or not. That should be a priority of your diet, period. Okay, and the 10th one that I have today for you is PNF. I want you to remember that, PNF. So beyond being in a calorie deficit, right? Because that is a core principle. We need to be in a calorie deficit to facilitate weight loss. Your two best friends are going to be protein and fiber, PNF. These both, protein and fiber, will help to keep you satisfied and stay fuller until your next meal, which means that these two, protein and fiber, will really help you to stay in your calorie deficit to actually facilitate that weight loss, right? When we are in a calorie deficit, because we are eating less than we burn in a day, there is going to be some natural hunger there, right? Because we're eating less than we're burning, our body's going to be hungry. To help mitigate that hunger that we are experiencing, that obviously makes us to want to eat more, we can utilize protein and fiber to help keep us full and satisfied for a lot longer periods so that we don't experience as much hunger as maybe we would if we had a lower fiber or lower protein diet while in a calorie deficit. Inside my Shape Up with Macros meal prep course, I tell you exactly how much protein to get in if you're losing weight or if you're at maintenance and if you're trying to gain muscle in a calorie surplus. Okay. Starting to pay attention to the macronutrients and your fiber intake is a game changer. I educate and empower you in my macro meal prep course. And if you don't know what to eat, how much to eat, how to balance your plate or food groups, how can you really expect to get the results that you want and to maintain those results, right? Because a lot of people will lose the weight and then they'll gain it back. So if you want help, since you stayed until the end, I have a special offer for you. In addition to the free food and mood journal that I'll give you access to, if you want to get access to my macro and meal prep course, I have a discount for you. And if you decide to join, I will personally customize your macros for you, which I have not offered that before with people who did the macro course. So I have a special discount for you as my podcast listener. I'll put the link in the description box and in the show notes. But your discount code is going to be rooted R15 when you purchase the course, and that's going to give you 15% off of the course. Once you purchase that, email me at nicole@nicoleibarrard.com, which I'll put in the description as well, telling me that you just joined, and we can set up a free call together so I can customize your macros for you. Now, the last thing that I want to tell you about tracking is it's a helpful tool to help you to understand your intake, just to understand what your intake is typically, to get more awareness of your food intake, and to help you if you're really trying to lose weight. Again, this is not something I want you to do for life, but it can really be helpful if you have body composition changing goals, for weight loss and supporting lean muscle mass. It's supposed to be a tool. It's not supposed to be something that you do forever, but it can be a very, very helpful tool for you. If this episode helped you, it would mean so much to me if you followed the show and left a quick 5-star review on the podcast platform that you listen on. It helps Rooted Radiance reach more women who are trying to improve their health and feel more confident. And if you have a friend who's been wanting to lose weight, send this episode her way. You never know how much it could help her. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next episode.